All right, Christine, whenever you are ready, take it away.
Christine, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hello, everybody. Apologies, I'm having some techie issues, but we will get right into this. Happy 20th anniversary. And I would like to take this opportunity to welcome us all. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us. I know it's evening for me here in Nairobi, Kenya. And it's so, so great to be here with you all, friends from all over the world who are joining us today. And I would like to welcome us all to this yet another great day where we get to really celebrate the good works that the Yes continue to do. I myself cannot imagine it's been 20 years already. And how amazing is that? And so I want to really welcome you all and say, welcome home, really. And in Kiswahili, in the spirit of intercultural learning, I'd like to say, karibu sana, which means welcome all and welcome everybody. My name is Christine Odera, and I'll be our moderator for today. I am a Yes alumni. I participated in the program in the year 2010-2011. I was hosted in the great city of Sheboygan in Wisconsin, and really great to be here and to connect with fellow alumni, and hopefully some of the participants that are also joining us will be glad to hear from you. Feel free to use the chat box to tell us where you're joining us from, which year you participated in the program, what you memorable experience when you are with the program. And isn't it amazing that so far we have about 14,000 alumni worldwide, including myself. I mean, you got that right. 14,000 alumni worldwide. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know about you, but that is quite something. And I remember while I was on program, the one theme that resonated with all of us as participants and now alumni a living proof of that. So joining me today to celebrate the 20 years anniversary is two brilliant alumni who were also on the program. And I am happy to introduce Heba. Heba will be speaking to us about some of her experiences and what she was able to do while on program and what she's doing now. She graduated from a Lebanese American university in Lebanon in the year 2020. And as of now, she is a freelance researcher and translator for an information company. Sorry. And in 2013, she was placed in Lake Stevens, Washington, where she spent the most life-changing 10 months of her life. And she will be telling us more about that. Next, we will be having Adam Steeder. And Adam was one of the participants who came to Africa and was hosted in the great city of Tema in Ghana. And the inaugural cohort of the Years Abroad in the year 2009, 2010. And after pursuing a master's in politics and international relations at the University of Cambridge in 2016, Adam is now selling softwares for tech startups. And as we all know, technology is now a big thing in our society. And he loves staying connected with Yes community around. And most recently, at his host sister graduation the past year from a pharmacy school. After joining us, another person who will be joining us today, for apologies for that, is Angina Groove. And Angina has been a local coordinator of the YEX and Flex program for years. And the family has actually hosted 11 YES students. The family grows bigger and bigger every day. And finally, I'm actually pleased to introduce Kevin Baker, who has worked with the Bureau of Education and Cultural Affairs in the US Department of State since 2003. In 2004, he began working with the Kennedy-Lugar Youth Exchange and Study YES program, where he is now the lead program officer, and he has served as the program officer for the workshops for youth leaders in English teaching programs for Flex and YES students. Well, thank you all for joining us today. And I want to remind everybody to be mindful of the time. And as we move through today's event, I also want to encourage our audience to add your reflections and tell us really where you're joining us and how YES has impacted your life, whether as a student, whether as now an alumni, whether as a host family, whether as somebody who has experienced what living with YES student is, and just tell us what your experience with YES is as we celebrate this 20 years. So for now, I'd like to invite our first panelist, and I'd like to invite Mr. Kevin Baker to give us the experience with YES program. And Mr. Baker, would you please tell us about the history of the program? What are the goals and the impact of the YES program? How have you seen the YES program grow over the last 20 years? Mr. Baker, over to you.
Okay, good morning. Thank you so much, Christine, for that introduction, and welcome everyone. And I'm so honored to be here and be serving on this panel with these great alumni who are doing so many things, and you're what the YES program is all about. And this is an exciting time to be able to celebrate 20 years. I was working, it was an interesting time when YES came about, to talk a little bit about the history. I was working in the ECA in an open area, working on the Flex program. And that's how I started out. And I think you all know about the Flex program. But working in an open area, I got to hear what everybody was talking about. And of course, people were beginning right at that time to be talking about this new program that was on the horizon. This program that would bring students from significant Muslim populations. And I was so excited about it. And hearing the stories and being there when the first students arrived in 2003, I really wanted to be part of it. And soon after I got there, they did announce a job for managing the YES program, and I applied, and I was so happy to get this job, and I've been working with it ever since. And this has been one of the most rewarding opportunities of my life to get to work with this program. It means a lot to me. There's a long history. I could go on for days telling you many stories, but I won't do that because I have 5 to 8 minutes, I see that my agenda says. How did it start? Well, like many of ECA's programs, it's often born out of a crisis, out of something that is going on in the world or in America that uh, involves our international relations. And of course, as you all know, it was 9/11 that happened and was the crisis that began a lot of discussions in Congress, in different agencies. And of course, when something like that happens, different agencies are thinking from their perspective of what they do, what can we do to address the issues that are going on in this, that we're seeing from this crisis. People in Congress are asking, what can we do? Which agencies do we need to talk to find out what we need to do? And there were a number of things that people were asking, especially at ECA, trying to better understand what was the feeling toward America and toward Americans that caused 9/11 to happen. People were also beginning to see after 9/11 that in America, there was immediate reaction to what happened, and immediate anti-Muslim sentiment was building in America. And there was a concern that we couldn't let that happen. We couldn't let Americans uh, grow in this kind of anti-Muslim feeling. We have a lot of Muslims here in America, but just for the future of the world, we can't go on with this kind of hatred, either going out or coming toward us. So people began to look at what kinds of programs there were in ECA that we could emulate, that we could talk about that. And in the discussions between ECA and Congress, pretty soon there was an idea emerged that maybe we could have a program for high school students, similar to the Flex program or CBYX program, bringing secondary school students here. And that idea caught on. There were champions in Congress, as you know, Senators Ted Kennedy and Richard Lugar joined this idea. And they actually championed a bill that was called the Cultural Bridges Act. And if you talk to people in ECA, how did the YES program come about? Sometimes people will say, oh, it was the Cultural Bridges Act of 2002. It actually wasn't. There was an elaborate bill, very descriptive of what the YES program, which ultimately became the YES program, would be like. It was a great idea and it failed. The bill failed, it didn't pass. But eventually a much larger law came about in the months after that. And it was a couple of 100 pages long, lots of different things that we were going to do to address the crisis and address the concerns, and money's going out to the Department of Defense, the Department of Education, the Department of Justice, and to the State Department. And ultimately, what the basis of the YES program was in this couple 100 pages document, one sentence, it's so short, I can read it. And this was from the public law And I'll read the title of it because the title is almost as long as the description that made the YES program happen. It was called the 2002 Supplemental Appropriations Act for Further Recovery from and Response to Terrorist Attacks on the United States. And in that document, that long document, was one sentence. Provided further that the funds appropriated by this paragraph, $10 million, should be made available for the establishment of a pilot academic year international youth exchange program for secondary school students from countries with significant Muslim populations. It was that little sentence that became what Christine was describing. Now, over 14,000 alumni of the YES program. 700 Americans have gone abroad. I think in total, we're now over 15,000, counting the students who are here this year, who have been part of the YES program just from this little sentence. And I've thought about that so many times, just learned the life lessons that could be learned in the experience of that there was this wonderful, elaborate act that just didn't pass, it failed, but the persistence was there to make the YES program happen. And ultimately, we did call it the YES program, and we added Senators Kennedy and Lugar's names to it. So that's how it was born. It was born with about 16 countries, 160 students. It's now much larger, around 800 students, 36 countries. So it's definitely over time grown in numbers of students and numbers of countries. But I think one of the most exciting developments in it has been just the growth and diversity of the YES program. Kids coming from Africa, coming from Europe, from Southeast Asia, coming from Suriname in South America. The diversity has been great. And of course, even though it was a program established for students from these countries with significant Muslim populations, we have students who are Muslim, non-Muslim, and even among the Muslim students, I often hear students say how exciting it is in the YES program to meet people of their religion from all around the world and find out how diverse Islam really is around the world. And that's been such a neat outcome of being part of the YES program. I think, of course, the immediate goal of the YES program was for people of other countries to better understand Americans, but very quickly, another outcome of it was that the students were learning about each other. They were learning about many cultures around the world, not just Americans. And I think that's been so exciting. And of course, I think most of us know the goals of the program. It was originally, and it continues to be, to promote better understanding of the United States on the part of people coming to the United States to visit, but also to promote understanding in our American communities, a better understanding of what are people like from the Middle East, what are people like from South Asia and Africa. It has promoted so much greater understanding on the part of just our communities and our high schools. And I think the impact that we have at this age level is so important, not on the changes that it's made in your lives, but for alumni, I just would want to say, you do not know what impact you've had on your classmates in America. For YES Abroad students, the impact that you're having on individuals in classrooms where you go to school in Ghana or Jordan or wherever you go, you're having an impact. And so many times over the years of working with the YES program, I've thought back to my own high school experience, and I won't tell you how long ago that was, but I do remember being friends with an exchange student from Thailand when I was in high school. And I thought how many times I've thought back to meeting her and understanding as a kid from a small town in Ohio, a small town of about 6,000 people. Very few people ever traveled outside the United States. They didn't travel much out of that regional area, but just meeting her gave me a better sense of the world. It gave me an idea that there were people who had other perspectives. There were people that were different in many ways, but still the same. And I think that's so much of what exchange programs give us. How has it grown over the years? I think it's just become much more sophisticated. Um, the Yes alumni are doing such greater things now, and developing their own projects on their own. I remember a couple of years ago meeting with students who were participating in Civ Ed. They were students on the program talking about project development, and they were giving presentations on how they would go about doing uh, creating a project. And I was so impressed. I thought, these are students on the program. They're still 15, 16, 17 years old. And this is what a few years ago, only alumni might talk at this level of understanding of community development. And I thought, as if you know my bio, you know that I was with the Peace Corps for many years. And I thought, these 15, 16-year-olds, I would have loved for them to be there to teach me as a 30-year-old volunteer, to teach me how to do community development, because they understood it so well. We're just finding more and more that the program shift, alumni aren't relying on the staff and whatnot. They're becoming the staff of the recruiting offices, and they're able to do more and more on their programs. And I think that's just part of where we're going with the program, is that there's just greater sustainability in the program because the alumni are contributing and just so much an integral part of making the program happen. I think I'll end there. I think I'm maybe a little over time, but appreciate your listening to me.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kelvin. And you mentioned something quite important. You mentioned the need for intergenerational dialogues. You mentioned the need for interfaith dialogues. And you have mentioned a couple of times the need for religious groups to come together and learn from each other. From your experience, how has that resulted to having a more peaceful coexistence across the cultures, across religions, across nations, across continents, and across different people around the world?
And that question was directed to me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think that, well, so much of what we do with ECA is people to people exchange. And it's an opportunity for just people to come together. And I remember a video that was done to promote hosting. And it was an older couple talking about their experiences over the years of hosting quite a few YES students, actually. And at the time, I think they had a student, one from Egypt and one from Pakistan. And, but they were talking about just the importance of being able to meet people face to face. And the host mother said, it's difficult to hate people from another country when you know somebody from that country and you love them. And I thought that was so meaningful and so central to what exchange is about, is that, you know, when something like 9/11 happens, for many Americans, they just associated that with Islam. But as you know, that's not what Islam is at all. And the only way for many of these Americans was just to have the opportunity to meet another Muslim. And when they suddenly in these small communities around America had you alumni in their high schools, in their families, and they found out that, oh, here's this young person who suddenly likes pizza, who, they find out, they love their mom and dad. They want a better future for themselves. They want an education, and you realize they're just people, and they have the same values. They have the same goals and aspirations that anybody has. It suddenly put a face on these concepts of religion and whatnot that I think are so important to people exchange.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Baker. And we are happy to have you on board and to learn from your wealth of experience. I thank you. Next, I would like to invite a fellow alumni, and I'd like to ask Heba, what really prompted you to join the program? Why yes? And how has the program impacted your professional and personal life? Heba, over to you.
Okay, thank you. So this is such an existential question to me, because looking back, I was just a 16-year-old girl with a bit of ambition and the dire need to travel. So I've been living in Gaza for 16 years, and I never seen the outside world. And to top it all, I was raised in a neighborhood where girls married young, and they were never encouraged to be more than that. But lucky for me, my mother was rooting for my and my sister's education. She was stripped of her right to go to college after high school, and she made it her goal to raise her daughters to love education and be successful. So when I heard that, when I heard from a friend that the YES existed, and it was basically a free ticket to an American school with an American educational system, I wanted nothing but to apply, because I saw that it was the first step towards bringing change to the educational system in Gaza and even Palestine as a whole. What can I say? I dream big. My parents went with it, going with me to tests and freaking out when I passed them, because to them, this was just me reaching for the stars, when there were much more accomplished students applying. And let's not forget the fact that when my extended family knew, they were sure that a girl cannot survive one day without her family, let alone travel and stay away for 10 months. I mean, this was 10 years ago, so Gaza was still living under a rock, or at least my family was. After going back to Gaza, my entire perspective about life in general was turned upside down. I no longer adopted the views and dreams of my family. I had my own. And it was after this period of self-reflection and exploration and living in my own pace, not wanting to solely satisfy the family, but also working towards a success I defined, away from traditional biases and the constant need to worry about what would people think or say about what I was doing. I mean, I wasn't entirely free, but I was on the right track. And seeing how education in the US was more focused on the needs of the students themselves and not the school, and it was helping them find their goal, made me question how curriculum was created back home. This pushed me into pursuing something that would help me change the status quo, and the personal growth kind of like fueled the professional and gave me the motivation I needed to do whatever I'm doing right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that reflection. And you just reminded me, we went on the program almost the same age, and my parents were terrified because this was my first time ever traveling abroad. This was my first time ever on an aeroplane. And this was my first time ever living with people who did not look like me, did not eat food like what I ate at home, and quite frankly had a different accent of how they pronounced words from the one I was used to. And that was kind of scary at first. So I totally hear you. And now just borrowing off from that, Adam, how was your experience? How did you end up choosing to participate on the YES program? And how was your experience coming to the Global South? Adam,
Yeah,
over to you.
Thanks, Christine. Yeah, really great to be here. Loving seeing all the chats and the attendees from, especially the Yes Abroad attendees. So like Hiba, I was 16 when I applied. I like what you said, that she was kind of eager to explore other cultures and also ambitious. I think I describe myself similarly. I did not grow up in Gaza. I grew up in a relatively privileged, privilege is a loaded term, but privileged suburb in California. And grew up doing a lot of language classes. From an early age, was really into studying languages. Had told my parents from a young age that Mom, Dad, don't expect me to live in the United States. I'm going to live in a foreign country, which I'm sure they loved hearing. And by the time I reached high school, I kind of still had that itch. I was studying French, studying Arabic, kind of scratching the itch in that way. But by the time it came time to think about what after high school, college, whatnot, I was really set on trying to do some type of exchange program. And at the time, my parents just had two rules. I had to get my college applications out of the way first, and then the program needed to be paid for. So the Yes Abroad program, I still remember finding out about it. I just finished my last application. I was ready to go for now the real thing, the exchange program that I wanted to do. And the Yes Abroad program just checked all the boxes I was looking for. Obviously, it was a scholarship, but I think without really knowing it going into the application, I found myself really drawn to kind of the seriousness of the program on some level. Not that we're super serious people, but for those that have been through Yes training or Yes Abroad training, the program takes this idea of like a citizen diplomat really seriously. And I think when I think about, I'm 31 now, when I think about the ups and downs in my 20s, whether like professionally or personally, and the different decisions I've had to make since returning from the program, I think this idea of being really present where you are, trying to invest in your home or your host community while you're there, not being overly attached to life back home so that you can really experience it and be open to it, has served me really well as far as just like being adaptable to new experiences. And then I would also just say that I went into Ghana thinking that I would be teaching people a lot, kind of be this ambassador that swoops in and talks about America and learns about Ghana. But it really got flipped, where I felt like I was a lot of times learning about my own country, learning a lot about myself. So I think that was kind of the key personal takeaway, was this like openness to other perspectives, and that surprise that like really good connections I've had with Ghana, with Ghanaians, with Yes participants have kind of come from when I talk a little less and I'm willing to hear a little bit more from other people instead of the other way around.
Oh, great, Adam. Must have been a huge change for you. And just learning to be out of your comfort zone is one thing we take pride in as Yes alumni and also while as participants. You realize that this notion of you knowing a lot about yourself and not other people is very clear. That other people have wealth of knowledge that sometimes we don't really get to appreciate because of our biases sometimes. But then you live with other cultures and you realize it's not good, it's not bad, it's just different from what you're used to. And I really appreciate the perspective that you bring to this discussion. One thing that we also take pride in, and the key aspect of the Yes program, is the host families. And I don't think the program would be what it is today if it were not for the host families. And we're privileged today to be joined by one of the host families. And she has over 10 years experience in hosting Yes students. And I'd like to now invite Angina. And Angina, can you tell us how your experience has been? And what have you learned over the years? I mean, 10 years of experience, that means more than 10 alums from different parts of the world. How has that been for you? And what surprised you most? And Gina, over to you.
Hi, thank you so much for inviting me today. I appreciate the opportunity to share. This is definitely one of my life passions as it's become. Yes, I've been a host mom for 10 years. I've been an LC, which is a local coordinator in the program, for 8 years. My 2 daughters were participated in Yes Abroad after being exposed as host siblings. And I got to actually be a flight, go with kids on the flights back from Bosnia into the US for their year here, which was fantastic as well to see that aspect. Hosting students and bringing them into your home at first is scary for host families that might be watching. But I can tell you it is the best thing I've ever done in my life for my kids, for my family, for my community. And that's why I wanted to be an LC too. I wanted to be able to share that with more people around our community. I just don't think people really think about it. I was exposed to exchange when I was in high school. I was from a very small school, but we had a pretty strong exchange program, and that was prior to Flex and Yes. Don't want to age myself, but so with that experience though, I definitely was exposed to it and always had an interest in it. And so when my husband and I started having kids and we were growing a family, that was definitely a priority, that we wanted to be able to bring that, expose our children to those cultures and to have being open. So that has just been definitely one of our driving forces behind it. I think some of the stuff I've learned over the years, teenagers are teenagers. I don't care where they come from. And I think that's one thing that is so important for our own students in our country here in America to see, and for the students coming from abroad, that you might have a different color of skin, you might have a different way and different things that you eat, you might have a different way of speaking, but underneath it all, jokes are funny and we're all gonna giggle, and hanging out and listening to music is fun, and we can all just jam and move. And, you know, underneath it all, we're all humans, humans to humans. We have a lot of differences, but there's also a lot of similarities. And I think that's what's so important for these kids to see, and why this program is so unique and so special. Over the years, gosh, kids have so much to share, whether it be the ones here. It's fun when you get kids in your house from like your local community and your exchange students, and listening to the conversations have, or trying to spark conversations with them, and getting them talking and listening to them. Like I said, kids are kids, and they have a lot to say, they have a lot to share. And I think sometimes as adults, we overlook that, but it's so important.
Great, thank you so much for that, Angina. What was the most surprising thing when you first hosted a student, and where was the student from?
Oh gosh, I'm not good with really significant, like I'm trying to remember. I think some of the foods that they've brought with them. That's when I travel, now that I've learned to travel from my kids, foods surprise me a lot. It's definitely been an area of growth and an area of passion for me now. So that has been tremendous. I always, my kids bring some treats or some snacks or something with them to share. You know, it's always fun to talk about that and gets conversation started. So I think food is a good sharing on when you're on program. Yeah, for sure.
Great, thank you. And now I'd like for us to look futuristically and ideally just think of, yes, now that we're celebrating 20 years in 2023, how do we envision it to be in 2033, in the next 10 years? What legacies do we want to see? And I'd like to invite Heba, and then after Heba, Adam, to ideally just paint to us a picture of what you'd like to see Yes as. We are now at 14,000 alumni. What number can you envision in the next 10 years or 20 years? What are some of the things that you would want to see done differently or done more to the program and within the program to continue impacting the great memories, the great friendship, the great families that are born out of the YES program? Heba?
For the numbers, I would hope they're gonna be crazy, because I would hope that more funding would be available to kind of like keep on with this amazing opportunity. But I would actually hope that it would stay the same. So the YES legacy has always been this, here to kind of like show how valuable culture exchanges and how necessary it is for both peace building and promoting youth leadership. I mean, the whole point of the program is building bridges, and what's better than building a bridge with a country or a lot of countries through its youth? It's already been 20 years since the start of the program, and still students get so excited when they know the applications are out. They look forward to knowing more about it, and they hope that one day they will also become alumni. 2 months ago, I was part of the committee that held the interviews for YES applicants for the year of 2023. And I could never forget the excitement on the students' faces when they came in the room, wanting to show their best self, because they believe that this will be the opportunity that will help them achieve success, to bring change upon themselves and their communities altogether. Being a YES is for life, and we as alumni hold a duty to share the knowledge and skills we gain through such experience. And I believe that is the legacy: to learn and teach, to learn then teach, and give back to the community, and to work towards building a better community through applying everything we learn through this experience as young leaders. And I would hope that that's what everyone learns throughout the years. Thank you.
Thank you, Heba. That's profound. Adam?
Yeah, I'm going to dodge a question and answer it at the same time. I think Kevin said something to the effect of, like, we have no idea kind of what the effect of this program will be. And in trying to prepare the answer to this one, it's kind of hard to think of, okay, here's what I hope or what I think the legacy will be. But I wanted to share one short story from this last year. So you mentioned in my intro, I went to my host sister's graduation from pharmacy school this last year. So this is my Ghanaian host sister, Akos. She got her pharmacy degree, shout out Akos. And the graduation was in Illinois. So I flew out there. My host father was also there, which was great. And then while I'm at this university, cheering her on, filming from the bleachers of this school gym, I get this comment on social media from a Palestinian YES alum that I had known in years after studying in Ghana, who was at the same university. And I didn't know he was studying there on a graduate program, but he reached out to me, and during my really short stay in Illinois, showed me around his town where he was staying. And so it was this kind of just like ripple effect where that's someone I'm now more in touch with than I was in touch with a year ago because of that connection. And it's kind of one connection here, one connection there that just has built. So I know for me personally, I kind of reach out and have thought about where I want to live and what I want to do, partially based on where I know there are YES alum. So I think for me, it's like less tangible of an answer, but I think just building on those connections is going to be the legacy of the program. And I guess what individuals do with that is yet to be seen. Can
I share on that?
Yes, go ahead, Heba.
So what he said reminded me the best thing ever. I met a friend of mine since 2013, and she was from Yemen, and never thought I would see her again. Fast forward, when I'm in college, she is my roommate for 1 year, and in Lebanon. And 2 days ago, I met another friend that I haven't seen for the past 10 years, and I only met her for 5 minutes in DC. And when I come to Egypt, I see her in Egypt. And it's this connection that even though we didn't really like stay for a while, we just hit it off for 5 minutes and then poof, gone, we were still connected. And it's that connection that makes this whole experience profound and euphoric for everyone who participates in this. So definitely the connection that comes from YES is the legacy.
Absolutely. I'd also like to share. So one day I was flying to Bali in Indonesia, and my flight was delayed from Nairobi. So by the time I got to Dubai, and my connecting flight was in Malaysia, then I get my flight to Denpasar, Indonesia in Malaysia. So my flight was delayed for about 4 hours, and by the time I was getting to Malaysia, the next flight was the following day. And so I thought of just going online on my Facebook, and I posted, if you're a YES alumni and you're in Malaysia, I'd like to connect. I have about 8 hours and I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go in Malaysia. This is my first time in Malaysia, and please connect. And you will not believe, in 10 minutes, I had connected with at least 3 alumni. One of them came and picked me from the airport, and we had a party in Malaysia. So out of that delay, I was able to reconnect, and they were not even in my batch. I mean, these were alumni from different batches, but we were able to connect, and I ended up feeling more relieved. You know how stressful it can be when you miss your flight and you have to wait long hours to connect. And so it ended up being a reunion and a connection that we have formed till today. Some of them have come to visit me in Kenya, and the conversation has kept going. So these are some of the impacts and the legacies that I would want to see still continue. Now, as we are grappling with within the pandemic, can we get youth doctors from Lebanon coming to Africa? Can we get some African doctors and nurses going elsewhere in the world and just helping other people? We saw how young people rose to the occasion when the pandemic hit, and really demystifying the myths around color, around foods, around any of these other stereotypes that continue to hinder us as a human. And we were able to come together as human beings and really see how best to help our fellow human beings. And that's just the spirit that YES impacts in us as alumni. The fact that you can be anywhere stranded, but you have family, if at all you're willing to let go of your biases and let other people help you, and also allow yourself to help others where need be. So I really enjoy listening to such stories, because ideally that's what makes us humans. And now I'd also want to extend to our host family present here today. Angina, what are some of the legacies would you like to see moving forward for host families and ideally the homes that host some of the exchange students, not just within the program, but even the other volunteers who just go around the world and wanting to get that experience? Angina?
Yes, I think I can. I think it's the most important thing is when I'm, seeking out host families, it's one of my jobs as LC to find families for students that are coming on this program. And sometimes I feel like I'm having to convince them that this is a good thing. It's going to be great. You're going to volunteer to open your home and things. But I think at the end of the day, and it's been hard for me to put it into words when trying to recruit host families, that these kids are going to come into your home and they're going to change your life and they're going to do things for you that you never thought was possible. And I think they give you so much more and you receive so much from this experience than you could ever give. And I think that's the biggest thing. This program, kids apply to go abroad and do other things. But I think in the end, families are applying to host, these kids are applying to go abroad. And in the end, we've all received so much more and been impacted more than we could ever have given to the program itself. It's become so big that it can give so much. It's just amazing.
Absolutely. I could not have said it any better. Thank you for that. And thank you for the great work you continue to do, Angina. And now to Mr. Baker, what do you hope the legacy of the YES program will be as we look into the future?
Yeah. I want to thank the other panelists because you've said it so well, and what keeps going through my mind right now, and we've mentioned this number 14,000. To me, the legacy of the YES program, 14,000 is just the base starting number. That's the people who participated on the program. But Angina, for instance, represents tens of thousands of host family members who have hosted students who have been impacted by this program. We can't count the number of your classmates that you impacted, the teachers. We've heard stories from teachers and school principals who talk about the impact of the YES student, that the YES student had on their lives. I told you about a student many years ago who impacted my life, a student from Thailand who came to my high school. I mean, the number of impact stories of the YES program is just, we can't count them. And I like to think that somewhere, someday, somebody is going to start an interfaith program in their community. And when they introduce a session, they're going to say, I was inspired by a YES student 15 years ago, who told me the importance of interfaith dialogue. There are just many stories that are going to happen because of the YES program that we may never hear about, but it's important that you did what you did, that you came here and shared your lives in America. It's important that American high school students go abroad and share their lives and their values and learn about the values of other people. We just have to keep doing it. Whether it's funded, we don't know if the funding will be here next year or not. It's going to happen. I think this is organic. What's happened is there's no stopping it. And you're going to continue impacting and inspiring. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Baker. And again, thank you for all the hard work that you put to impact the many people around and across the world. It's so sad that time runs so fast when you're having such enriching conversation. It's such a bummer. However, as we conclude and come to a close of this impactful conversation, I also want to really thank our participants who continue to tell us where they're joining us from. I see we have some participants joining us from as far as Suriname. Welcome, welcome everybody, and we're glad you could join us. Now, as we close, I'd like to give the panelists each a minute to really reflect and offer us some of your reflections on the long-term diplomacy that such programs then bring to our experiences. And I'd like to start to ask us to really reflect, and even for the participants on this call, just reflecting on the future diplomacy of what we do, the connections that we have formed as we live with other people in other parts of the world. And I'd like to invite, I think we could start with Heba or Adam to at least just give us a 1-minute reflection of what you believe the YES program importance is when it comes to the long-term diplomacy. In 1 minute, please. And then pass it on to Heba. So we start with Adam, then Heba, then we can go to Angina and finish with Adam. Thanks.
Yeah, happy to. I think the emphasis would be on long-term. I just think, the friend-to-friend relationships we've been talking about here have more staying power than politics and the other types of diplomacy that exist. So that's a bit vague, but I just think that if we're talking about long-term diplomacy, long-term connections, staying strong through difficult times, through conflict, then I have more faith in the types of friendships that I've had with participants or my host family, people like that, than I do and stuff that I read in the newspaper.
Thank you, Adam. Heba?
Kind of like diplomatically, after 10 years of being an alum of the YES, I have a network of more than 3,000 people all over the world. And the understanding that comes from knowing so many people was first ignited by the YES, especially DC orientations when we first arrived to the US. There were students from all backgrounds, ethnicities, and genders sitting in the food hall laughing so loud. And we were so childish then, but now I look at success stories of my fellow alumni and I'm so impressed of how far they've come. They're becoming the leaders that they so desperately needed in their communities. I mean, we're basically the ones bringing the change and connecting countries together solely through culture exchange. And I'm here for every second of it. I love it.
Thank you, Heba. Anjina?
I think I just have to add what Adam and Heba have said is so true, but it humanizes the world around you. I had a pilot friend of mine say one time that being able to fly shrinks your world, and I feel like this program shrinks your world. When you see something on the news, these kids are just in their communities, but then they see something on the news, right now it's been for the last year, Ukraine. I mean, I'm sure if we've been in this program, you know somebody from Ukraine. So it just humanizes the world around you. And I think that brings people together. They care about what's going on. And I think those things, like you said, it's these kids, these relationships all over the world. It's what brings the world together eventually, hopefully.
And finally, Mr. Kevin.
Yeah, I think you've all said it so well. It's just humanizing other people and just seeing the news, like Angina said, reading a news article and just seeing it in a different way, because even if you don't know somebody from Ukraine, you have a better understanding because you've had the experience, the intercultural experience, and just living our lives with intent. I think that whatever we do in our profession or whatever, we have an interest in other cultures. And I think that's the long-term diplomacy of it. More open minds.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Kevin. And thank you really to the guests for sharing your stories and being vulnerable to sharing your experiences, because that's another thing that I learned while on the program, and also just looking futuristic, is the fact that I know my culture is not the best. I know I don't come from the most developed of the world. I know that my country has some challenges. I have some challenges as a person, but also being vulnerable to share the truth of how things are, and being vulnerable to also make friendships that I know are going to be informed by the good and the bad, but choosing to focus on the good and not the bad that happens around the world. And so I really want to thank all my panelists for the great discussion that we have had, all the panelists for sharing their stories, and everyone really for joining us, and to kick off this celebration, the 20th anniversary of the Youth Exchange and Study Program. And really, in addition to this kickoff event, we will be sharing alumni spotlight featuring all the good work that a lot of our alumni are doing across the world. And especially in this 20th anniversary, the logo has also been shared out. So feel free to continue this conversation in your social media. We have been using the KLYes20 hashtag. So it's hashtag KLYes20. Share your stories. Tell us your most impactful. I know some of us have not been privileged to be part of the YES participants, but you have YES friends within your countries. You have come back home and you're sharing your experiences across. Tell us what that has been like for you. And I know some of us, especially in Africa, come back speaking differently. We get an acquired accent. So tell us how that was. I know when I first came back to Kenya, I had a very funny Wisconsin accent. I mean, must have been from the cheese, but hey, it was just great seeing how my friends noticed that I speak different, I behave different, and so some of those things now we look back and it's such a moment of laughter because it has really impacted the person I am now. I work closely with governments and I help governments really interpret youth programs and how to really look at the youth issues within their countries. And it's also quite fascinating the fact that a lot of us young people are telling a different story around the world because a lot of people also don't understand this new generation. And it's upon us to help the world make sense of the world you and I live in. And it's only you and I that can make that happen. So I really want to, again, thank you all for making time to join us. And we will also be inviting community members to share their experiences and yes, impact stories. So after this event, please be looking forward to receiving an email that includes a form from host families, communities, and anyone else impacted by Yes, to share their stories and really help us celebrate these 20 years. And as we look forward to many, many more years of youth exchange and study. So I again take this moment to thank you all for joining us today. And I wish everyone a wonderful 2023. Keep safe, take care of yourself, keep living the truth spirit of our intercultural learning, and let's all make the world a better place, not just for us, but for the generations to come and the generations to come after generations that come. I want to really thank you all and wish you all the best in the year. I know we're just starting the year. I really want to wish you well in all your endeavors, in all your travels. Continue making friendship across the world, and let's be true to being human. I thank you, and that has been our time. I have been your moderator, Christine Odera from Kenya, and from me is peace out. We love you. Bye-bye. Take care.